Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Ready Speaker. I'm on this one myself. Just had a topic I want to talk about, more in the streaming entertainment realm. I know I usually have somebody on here do a comparative review of something I find interesting to watch, and I thought I'd just do one this week with the headlines that Cowboy Bebop has been canceled for season two. So I thought it'd be a great time to do a review. I was going to do one anyway, so I did watch it, and I'm going to be speaking about that and Arcane, both on Netflix, both sort of futuristic settings, dystopian a little bit mix of steampunk, I think, which is kind of the norm, and both with a style that originates more of the like the anime style from Japan and Korea and all those other little places that have really brought that across to the U.S. With the artwork and the action and the storytelling. So let's start with Cowboy Bebop, since I don't think that's really coming back again. Maybe it'll come back somewhere else. It's based on an anime series that also aired, I think, on Netflix, or at least I remember being on Netflix a few years back. Very popular. People really like the characters. They like the storyline. I found it atypical. I didn't really get involved in it. I thought the drawing style back then was pretty much, what it's always been. I'm an older guy, so I remember watching the stuff on UHF channels uh, in uh, in New York City. And we used to watch actually the Japanese cartoons directly before they actually became popular in New York. Even though I didn't know Japanese or Chinese or whatever, or from Hong Kong, wherever they came from, whatever channel they were playing, they we just got the stories. So they're very simple, very dynamic, very theatrical. I think mythic would be a good way to look at it. There is a mythology in all of them, and I think that came to play in Cowboy Bebop. It was a hard watch to start. It just didn't feel right. I have the IMDb page up here, so just going through the leads, and hopefully I won't screw up anybody's name. But John Cho, I don't think I'll really screw up that name. But he's the lead in this. We've seen him in a lot of stuff. He's been around for a while. His credits are pretty extensive. He's been doing stuff, geez, for a long time. So it's, Star Trek and all that stuff. And I think he was in Harold and Kumar uh, series. So that's happening. So he's been in a lot of stuff, and his resume is great. I think he's a fine actor. I think he's got great delivery a lot of times. I think in this setting, he was trying to be something uh, of the main character that he couldn't bring along as Spike. I think there was a bit of camp and cartooniness, I guess, on Cowboy Bebop that I really didn't get. It didn't come across great. It didn't really it didn't land well for me. I did watch it to the end. I do feel that it did finally get some of its rhythm by the end of the series. And this was a binge watch. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was released all at once. There was a lot of hype on it. There was a lot of hype with stills, and they were very excited about it and how it's going to play. I just didn't feel that John Cho might have been the best character to play this, or he didn't have time to find how to play it as well as he could. There was the arc in it. I didn't watch the original anime series really, so I saw clips of it and I've seen clips of it. Yeah, again, wasn't really my thing. I think the dialogue was very He-Man-esque, so very sort of like, hey, chip on your shoulder and humorous. And I don't know really what the goals were, besides the goals that are in the storyline. But it really just it didn't find a reason to do something. And even though there's established relationships with Spike and Jet Black, which is played by Mustafa Shakir, and Mustafa Shakir or Jet Black, let's just keep the character names, that did move along, I think, to a better place. I thought his character, I felt his character started digging in, and he was able to portray it better by the end than by the beginning. And then we have Faye Valentine, who she's also one of this group, and that's true, I believe, to the animated cartoon that it came across. She had a lot of great energy. I think she was very I don't want to say cartoonish, by her appearance. I think her mannerisms were a little bit over the top, and but it fit for her character, and she had a good presence in it. And then there's one little thing I found odd, but I could talk about that later. And then we go to Arcane, which is based, I believe, on a graphic novel or a comic book series. And that I found super interesting. I thought the artwork, which is usually what brings me in, if I see something new or I see something that sort of not excites me, but draws me into the story. I thought that the artwork here was really, really good. There was some fine details in there about how things. Man, I'm even looking at the stills, and they're just pretty. They're just so pretty. They're just so pretty. Whereas I'm looking at the stills of the photos from around the set with Cowboy Bebop, and they're just not that pretty. They're almost. They're trying to be cartoony in it, but it feels like Cowboy Bebop would be what Batman was. I mean, maybe they'll get a cult following with the live action, but like the Batman TV series was very campy, and it was very flat. Yet it tried to pop with colors, so it's almost like a two-dimensional cartoon, and there's no real depth in it. I'm not understanding where the world is besides that animated canvas that we're seeing. The colors play that way too, and again, this does reflect how it was shot originally in the anime or the original series. But I don't know if it translated really well. I don't know if it needed to be, done this way. Maybe if it was a reboot with original content. I don't know. I'm assuming this isn't original content. The storyline is a reboot of the storyline. But I think if it was a reboot with a new arc and animated with these individuals' voices, I think, or representative of them, maybe you could do a what if style of art where it becomes them and their likeness is put on there. So they're not just doing voiceover work; they're actually bringing something to the character. I think that could have been interesting because then you can play with dimensions and depth and series. So if you're trying to get the story going, that actually works really well. Now, if you compare that to Arcane, which had great artwork, I think it had a decent story. I'm not really familiar with any of the names on it, but it looks like it's a good cast of a pretty deep cast of people. I really enjoyed it. There are points of it that are probably a little bit over the top for me. I think as the characters sort of mature physically, they're a little bit overly sexualized for the women, but I think it's a very sexually dynamic story as well. So I think I'm probably looking at it a little weird with one of the characters in it, and then that's let's see. Oh man, sorry, just reading through all the names. Well, I mean, like some of the characters as they mature and they get older, I feel like some the younger female characters it's just a little bit too sexualized. But when you look at the story as a whole, that everybody is pretty much sexualized in it. So it's a very steampunk sort of feel, but very fast moving, very forward thinking. Uh, I don't feel lost in that story. I feel like there was a beginning, middle, and end for this season. I think there was layers of why the characters were doing things, which I didn't have in Cowboy Bebop. Again, it felt very hey, every episode was a standalone, yet there was a thread connecting all of them. Every episode had a very flat villain in it. And I know you don't always have to have a villain throughout an arc, but if you're gonna play it like this, and this is a binge, this is released as a binge, whereas Arcane I think was released weekly. So I was watching that every week and picking up on it. I was very excited about it. I was looking forward. Cowboy Bebop, I think, was just released all at once. It was just dumped. And I don't know if it was the right format for that. I think it should have been released more gradually. And gradually, not more gradually, but gradually. And I think it should have just been released in that way once a week. And people might have, got an attachment for it. I think that's probably the best way for me to look at it is that there was no attachment for it. It was let loose. People saw it. I don't know if they got into it that much, but they definitely saw it, and then they didn't bother seeing it again. Arcane, I don't know if anyone's got any buzz about it. I'm not sure even if it's coming back, but I wish it would because I thought it was actually really, really good. Dude. Some of this, I'm a big art fan, so I mean, I doodle. I wish I could show you some of my doodles. I have them around here, but I've always doodled my whole life, and they're more people faces and actions, and that's probably just my upbringing, and what the influences were in my life, and the comic book reading and the certain artists, Byrne and Perez, that were coming up, and their style of art always made an impact on me. The Dark Knight, you know, detective series. Detective comic series for Batman, where he was, just more of a brooding character, and the lines were different than traditional, comic book art. So I always got influenced by that, and I saw a lot of that broodiness and that depth and that emotion in Arcane. And for a live action flick, I thought, you know, Cowboy Bebop probably should have, stayed animated and really invested in that rather than trying to make these characters fit a preconceived character. There is another similarity between them, uh, is that in both series, which I've been noticing a lot lately, is how common it is to see a little woman on woman action in these series, and how it's overly sexualized. It's titillating. I would say that's probably the best way to look at it. That's written that way. It's sort of like, hey, a special moment of titillation for everybody. I don't really see that with the guy on guy action, where it's very taboo or you can't tell anybody. Where in these, it's like it didn't really fit in Cowboy Bebop. I thought, that Faye Valentine was enamored with another woman on the ship who was doing some repairs, and it became boom chicka wow wow, a little bit of that. And that's fine. I think that's fine, but it just seemed a little like, hey, let's have a special episode. Let's just make this happen, and everybody will think it's kind of cool, and they're both attractive women. And then you have the Arcane thing, and they have relationships there, but it wasn't on that level. I mean, there were some creepy elements to the Arcane story, which I won't. I don't want to really do. Well, now we always do spoilers. Why not? Fuck it. But there is the creepy element of the older guys and the younger girls, and it's a criminal world, and essentially Arcane is there's people on top and there's people on the bottom. They live actually underneath these cities, and they do all the heavy work in these locations, and magic exists, and somebody just finds a way to harness magic and share it. So it's a shared power that can be shared with multiple people. And then there's a way to harness that without it, destroying everything, and it corrupts like any power. So it's a great metaphor like that, where you're looking for divinity. You're looking for this all-encompassing power that you think can share, and eventually somebody corrupts it. Someone's always chasing to win, even if the outcome is something good. Even if the outcome in that is that they're looking to bring the underground dwellers up, and give them freedom and give them power. And there's a thinking of, hey, we're helping the working class, which is an interesting thing. That even that, which is a theme I saw even in The Harder They Fall on Netflix, which is there's all these evils you have to get through to help the people who need it the most. And I don't even know if that's the right message out there, as a storyline. Because right now we have all these politics in the U.S. and everybody's worried about communism and socialism, even though they don't really know what it means. They don't know what socialism means. They don't really know what communism means. It's just a knee-jerk word. The unions are socialized organizations that they are. So if you support any union, you effectively support socialism, no matter what you say. That is what it is. That's the thinking behind it. That's where it stemmed from. That's the movement that it helped forge forward with, and it's remained in this country, and it is a concept, and people have a goal of joining unions. So there is that, but it does give it a very negative sort of feel, where someone's trying to unite, and they must be the most evil person in the world. And yet the underlying thing is that they're not. They're really just trying to see. Yeah, they want the power. They want to be the person on top. So maybe that's what's making it a negative, thing for me, where I'm looking at this person who's trying to help everybody. And again, we have these myths, in American culture of when you're helping everybody, it's a divine thing. I think once you help everybody in a non-religious way, it's not divine. Which I don't know. I guess that's me just thinking this through. So if I'm thinking through that storyline, that if we see this pattern all the time, I guess, that if you're if you're helping the masses in a work environment, if you're politically motivated, if you're if now by politically motivated I mean not just for a chair, but having a voice that sets policy, or you create an institution that supports people, be it free clinic, be it feeding the poor, be it anything, it's a negative lift to it. Whereas if it was divine, a church's soup kitchen as opposed to a benevolent individual soup kitchen is seen differently. Is there a cause or a reason? People don't realize that most times churches and other religious establishments set up shop somewhere as they convert people through that niceness, through those niceties, and they pull people in saying, hey, look how great we are, I want you to sign up. So I think that's something to think about, how that storyline evolved. And then on the Cowboy Bebop side, a cowboy is a what the hell are they? Cowboy. I'm totally lost here for a second. So I'm thinking about now the politics, and I didn't really understand when I watched that the first time. How interesting that is when you see something where it's a structure like that, where they're trying to help the masses and they're always criminals, and it's a common theme. It's a much common. It's a theme that sort of like travels, especially in the last 10-15 years. You've seen it a lot, where Bane from Batman just wanted everything to work in Gotham, but he was a bad guy. Oh, Bebop, bounty hunters. They're bounty hunters. That's what they are. Cowboys are bounty hunters. And they're all ex-cops or somebody who's got burned, very much into the like American theme, even though it comes from somewhere else, but the American theme of the cops who need to do the illegal things to get things right. They're good hearts, but they're rugged guys, and they sort of hurt people if they have to, and everybody just wants to hurt people. So, and even in that, they have a villain in one of the episodes of Cowboy Bebop that is a nature nut, that doesn't want a planet to have water and forest and everything, or wants to return to water and forest. They can't have people living there with buildings or anything, and they're essentially terrorists. And I thought it was really interesting because they had no goal really than to blow people up. They only want to stop what they want for themselves, really. And they're almost idiots. I mean, they are idiots actually. Total idiots, total disregard, even for one another. Adrian Barbeau was in it, yeah. Maria Murdoch, and that was interesting episode because it felt a little weird and it felt very campy, like I said, like very much like a Batman show from the '60s. And I think that's where they failed with that. They were showing a style that maybe people talk about and people put on T-shirts, but I don't know if that's really relevant anymore as a style, or as a style that people want to see. So it's kind of a miss for me. I wasn't really surprised that they didn't get a callback for next year, and that Netflix tends to drop and dump a series pretty quick. If they don't get anything after a couple of years, they're gone. But it didn't have the hype for something that had a lot of hype actually. That had a lot of hype, and I felt didn't really land well, even with some good written characters from the leads, not necessarily, like I said, Mustafa, Shakir, and Daniela. I thought they were pretty good. I thought they were finding their footing. I thought they were actually finding something that they could really bring to the table, for later, and have some depth. There's some silly storylines in there, with family relationships, and the logic wasn't there. It was, again, bounty hunters, yet they're sort of like, trying to be film noir, I guess. And I think that's sort of where it plays, like a mashup of film noir and like '70s, or late '60s camp, and with the outfits and everything and the colors and all the popping. But again, it just didn't jive. It just didn't feel like, even the fabrics didn't seem like they were, for the costumes or what they were wearing, didn't seem like they actually lined up with each other, like they were a hodgepodge and probably from a different storyline. And in Arcane, I just thought it really, really, really did a great job. I was really shocked by some of the artwork, and I'm even looking at the poster. It looks pleasant. There's a lot of stuff. The poster's telling me a big story alone of the hierarchy of what they are and who's broken. I will say that the one thing I don't want to say, I will say, it's kind of silly the way I'm saying it, is that it was a little bit Harlequin. So this actually goes back to, the comic book world. So it was a little bit Harlequin. One of the characters is a little bit Harlequin to me. Just one bad day where they're a little nuts and they're a little crazy, and they need, they need something from somebody. And I think that's probably one element, but it plays well, to look at. So it's not maybe not original in all aspects, but it plays well, and the story does get you there. I'd give it a shot if I was you. Give it a shot, even for the artwork. Even for the artwork, I think it's very interesting. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed some of the tension in it. I enjoy the storyline. Love the artwork. I loved how they built out the characters, and an interesting thing of it is they also have characters of various age groups there playing, and I think the way they were depicting the arcs between people, where they are in their lives, and the power plays they were doing, and the education they had, life experiences they had, I think played well. Whereas in Cowboy Bebop, again, very flat. I mean, there were some things there. There was like some weird thing about a woman and her husband doing role play, and that wasn't like one of my favorite episodes. So it was trying to be over the top when it didn't need to be over the top, and it could have been, I think, really well. Done well. I think there were some elements physically and some storylines that I thought could have been a little better, or somewhat nailed it. But the overall feel of it was a little flat for me. The overall, there were moments I think it could have found its footing. Maybe it should have gotten a second year or a gradual release, just so people can try and invest some time into the characters and the people. But as a hey, watch all now, I don't know if it was really the best that it could be. And Arcane, I think it was a weekly thing. I really enjoyed it. Loved the colors. Loved the elements of it. Loved the maturity sort of it. Because they're kids, they're kid characters who grow up, and there's a sense of loss in their own maturity and how they're getting to places. So there's probably a lot of stuff you can dig into it. I mean, very, very DC-like, if you're gonna go comic, very, very Joker DC-like sort of. Very small world view, even though it's for a planet or a city. It's really just a city that's impacted by all of this. So it's a very small world view, which I kind of enjoy, and that's a very DC Comics feature. They do great. DC does great with small world view, does horrible with big world view. But small world in the city, that's always been its niche, and it fits that well. And Cowboy Bebop, I think, was just too broad for me. Their world wasn't able to develop. I didn't really feel the world building. It felt like there were relationships, but I didn't know how they had the relationships. Like they had them, but there wasn't any growth to that. It felt like they stayed where they were. They just kept repeating, "This is my friend. They saved my life," or "I trust this person," or "I don't trust this person." And in Arcane, there were relationships, but I saw them evolve and change, and the characters even questioned the relationships. So they weren't the same as when they started, or they were strengthened or weakened. But that to me is an interesting dynamic in such a story. I give them both a watch. I'm never going to say don't watch it, and maybe you'll hate me for what I'm saying, but I definitely think Arcane is more worthy of a watch, and maybe Cowboy Bebop just needed a little bit of a longer runway to get where it needed to be. All right. Well, it's a short one. Sorry, it's just me. So no big jokes, but I wanted to talk about it because I know this one got canceled. I'll look and see if the other one didn't. But I'm pointing to my screens here. So doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, doing a little bit of shimmy. So all right, great. Thanks. Join me if you want to tell me a topic to watch or tell me a series to watch. I'll watch a topic to watch. I mean, tell me about it, something to watch or a topic to really talk about. I'll give it a shot. If you want to join me on this podcast, I'd love to hear some other people's opinions. Maybe we'll talk about a show you like. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to leave a message. Say I'd love to talk about this. Have you watched it? I try and watch more recent stuff, but I'm not opposed to watching something older. Maybe I could talk about some films next time, and talk about some other things, or even stuff that's happening culturally out there. I do try and find cultural stories and elements in all these things and what they say, because every script and every story is a product of its time, and we're all getting those same impacts and the influences that are out there, and it depends how it leaves people. And sometimes it leads people into stories that become popular. And I think there's a lot to say for both of them. Probably Arcane just has, I think, a bit of a richer story. All right, great. Again, Roland, right here. Like, share, subscribe, please. Why not? Right? And hopefully I can do more for you. Thanks. Bye.